Hi, subscribers, my friends. This time I would like to share the files from WHO. The name of file is WHO Outbreak Communication Guidelines. I think this information in these guidelines is pretty, very important. Okay, now I would like to share the information with you. This file was edited and published in 2004. And well, the background. Disease outbreaks are inevitable and often unpredictable events. The environment surrounding an outbreak is unique in all of public health. Outbreaks are frequently marked by uncertainty, confusion, and a sense of urgency. Communication, generally through media, is another feature of outbreak environment. Unfortunately, examples abound of communication failures which have delayed outbreak control, undermined public trust and compliance, and unnecessary prolonged economic, social, and political turmoil. The World Health Organization (WHO) believes it is now time to acknowledge that communication expertise has become as essential to outbreak control as epidemiological training and laboratory analysis. But what are the best practices for communicating with the public, often through the mass media during the outbreak? Guidelines for communicating with the public during outbreaks. In nearly 2004, WHO began an effort to construct evidence-based, field-tested communication guidance that would promote the public health goal of rapid outbreak control with the least possible disruption to society. The first step in this process was an extensive review of risk communication literature. During this process, WHO identifies risk communication components which had direct relevance to outbreaks. Then, this body of material was distilled into a handful of features strongly associated with communication effectiveness, or when lacking, strongly associated with failures. Finally, these few features were assessed by outbreaks control expertise from a wide variety of cultures, political systems, and economic development. The result of this extensive review, filtered through a broad practical assessment, is a short list of outbreak communication best practices. They are listed below. 1. Trust. The overriding goal for outbreak communication is to communicate with the public in ways that build, maintain, or restore trust. This is true across cultures, political systems, and the level of country development. A. The consequences of losing the public's trust can be severe in health, economic, and political terms. Abundant research and prominent public health examples support the hypothesis that the less people trust those who are supposed to protect them, the more afraid the public will be, and the less likely they will be to conform their choices and behavior with outbreak management instructions. B. Senior management must endorse this goal, but winning their support for specific trust-building measures faces many practical barriers. 1. This is because these trust-building measures are often counterintuitive, such as acknowledging uncertainty or avoiding excessive reassurance. 2. Consequently, building trust internally between communicators and policymakers is critical. Trust also essential between communicators and technical outbreak response staff, who may not see the need of communicating with the public essentially, if it means diverting them from other tasks. This internal relationship between communicators, technical staff, and policymakers is sometimes known as the trust triangle. The trust triangle component are communicators, technical staff, and policymakers. It is important that the trust triangle be established before it is needed. This can be complicated because different stakeholders, perhaps represented by different ministries, may have conflicts of interest, which will require consensus building among partners. C. Trust in communicating with the public is critical in both decision directions. Evidence shows that public panic is rare and most rare when people have been candidly informed. But the extent to which outbreak managers trust the public ability to tolerate incomplete and sometimes alarming information influences communication, decision making, and effectiveness. D. Mechanism of accountability. Involvement and transparency are important to establish and maintain trust, and they are especially important to rebuild trust when it is low. Allowing high-profile critics to watch decision-making and even participate, for example, reduces the need for trust and increases trust. Two, announcing earlier. The parameters of trust are established in the outbreak's first official announcement. This message's timing, candor, and comprehensiveness may make it the most important of all outbreak communications. A. In today's globalized, wired world, information about outbreaks is almost impossible to keep hidden from the public. Eventually, the outbreak will be revealed. Therefore, to prevent rumors and misinformation and to frame the event, it is best to announce as early as possible. B. People are more likely to overestimate the risk if information is withheld. And evidences show that the longer officials withhold worrisome information, the more frightening the information will seem when it is reviewed, especially if it is reviewed by an outside source. C. An announcement must be made when public behavior might reduce risks or contribute to the containment of the outbreak. D. The small size of outbreak alone or a lack of information are insufficient arguments to delay an announcement. There are times when even one case, such as an Ebola report, can justify earlier announcements. E. But there are potential problems. One, rapid announcements may surprise important partners who might disagree with the initial assessment. This can be minimized by having well-established communication pathways in place among key and predictable stakeholders. These systems should be tested during routine exchanges or through desktop exercises. Two, early announcements are often based on incomplete and sometimes erroneous information. It is critical to publicly acknowledge that early information may change as further information is developed or verified. The benefits of early warning outweigh the risks, and even those risks, such as providing inaccurate information, can be minimized with appropriate outbreak communication messages. 3. Transparency. Maintaining the public trust throughout an outbreak requires transparency, i.e., communication that is candid, only easily understood, complete, and factually accurate. Transparency characterizes the relationship between the outbreak managers and the public. It allows the public to view the information gathering, risk assessing, and decision-making processes associated with the outbreak control. A. Transparency provides many benefits, including demonstrating how, even at the time of uncertainty and confronting unknowns, outbreak managers are systematically seeking answers. B. Since transparency can also expose weaknesses in outbreak management structures and operations, it provides a strong incentive for deliberative and accountable decision-making. C. Total candor should be the operational goal consistent with generally accepted individual rights such as patient privacy. The key is to balance the rights of the individual against information directly pertinent to the public good and the public's need and desire for reliable information. Announcing the limits of transparency publicly and explaining why those limits are being set is usually well tolerated, provided the limits are justified. But if limits to transparency become excuse for unnecessary secretiveness, the likely result will be a loss of public trust. D. Many barriers can block transparency. 1. Economic arguments are often raised, but public health officials' first concern has to be human health. There is, however, an increasing body of evidence showing that recovering from the economic impact of outbreak is faster when governments have been transparent and have developed a track record of effective outbreak management. 2. Media preparation should be an essential component of professional development for public officials. Whenever possible, such preparation should precede each media interaction. It is not a process of preparation of delivery skills so much as preparation of specific messages and answers to likely questions. 3. Spokespersons or public officials may not feel confident in delivering bad news or discussing uncertainty. 4. And there might be a fear of revealing weaknesses in infrastructure, pride, embarrassment, and fear of being blamed can also lead to lack of candor. 5. Although these factors are very difficult to manage in an accurate situation, culture change among decision makers and senior technical officers leading to greater transparency should be one of the strategies in preparedness planning for outbreaks. Transparency by itself cannot ensure trust. The public must see that competent decisions are being made, but in general, greater transparency results in greater trust. 4. The public. Understanding the public is critical to effective communication. It is usually difficult to change pre-existing beliefs unless those beliefs are explicitly addressed. It is nearly impossible to design successful messages that bridge the gap between the expert and the public without knowing what the public thinks. A. Only risk communication was directed at informing the public about technical decisions known as the decide and tell strategy. Today, risk communicators teach that crisis communication is a dialogue. B. It is the job of communicator to understand the public's beliefs, opinions, and knowledge about specific risks. This task is sometimes called communications surveillance. C. If possible, Representatives of the public should be brought into the decision-making process. Often, this is not possible, so it becomes the job of the outbreak communication manager to understand and represent those views as decision-making involves. D. The public's concerns must be appreciated even if they seem unfounded. When a publicly held view has validity, public making should be consistent with that view. When a publicly held view is mistaken, it should still be acknowledged publicly and corrected, not ignored, patronized, or ridiculed. E. Risk communication messages should include information about what the public can do to make themselves safer. This affords people a sense of control over their own health and safety, which in turn allows them to react to the risk with more reasoned responses. The public is entitled to information that affects their health and the health of their families. Learning who they are and what they think is critical to successful outbreak communication. Communication about personal preventive measures is particularly useful as it empowers the public to take some responsibility for their own health. 5. Planning. The decisions and actions of public health officials have more effect on trust and public risk perception than communication. There is risk communication impact in everything outbreak control managers do, not just in what is said. Therefore, risk communication is most effective when it is integrated with risk analysis and risk management. Risk communication should be incorporated into preparedness, planning for major events, and in all aspects of an outbreak response. A. Have a risk communication plan ready before it is needed. Outbreak communication planning must be a part of outbreak management planning from the start. To be effective, outbreak communication cannot be a last-minute add-on feature to announce decisions. B. Communication planning is usually led by agency communicators and often ignored by senior management. Because outbreak communication principles include some counterintuitive notions about dealing with the public, it is a potential hazard to wait for a crisis to tell managers about the need to acknowledge uncertainty or emphasizing with the public's beliefs and fears. C. Issues of first announcements, limits of transparency, and other communication components should be agreed upon by senior management and ideally by the political leadership before the crisis is broken. Central features including answering questions such as what needs to be done, what needs to know, who is the spokesperson, what agency has the lead, and who needs to act. These steps are also placed in context, so they are linked to other ministries and, if need be, the international community. This does not mean that outbreak communication, which has not been planned, is doomed to fail. Trust, for example, can develop during an outbreak, but it is far easier to build trust before it is needed. Conclusion. If implemented effectively, these guidelines for outbreak communication will result in greater public resilience and guide appropriate public participation to support the rapid containment of an outbreak, thus limiting mobility and mortality. In addition, Effective outbreak communication will minimize the damage to a nation's international standing, its economy, and its public health infrastructure. WHO is now extending its outbreak communication activities. Among the next steps is the development of training for communication staff so that they can provide support for WHO country offices during the high-profile outbreaks. WHO also plans to assist member states in building capacity in outbreak communication when requested. The overriding public health goal is to bring the outbreak under control as quickly as possible, with as little social disruption as possible. Effective outbreak communication is one tool to achieve that goal. This is the end of this file, WHO Outbreak Control Guideline. Thank you for your watching and listening. Bye-bye.